This is the Clojure setup assignment for CMTC 405 programming languages, and in this assignment we're going to be setting up the development environment that we're going to be using for Clojure. At various points throughout the assignment, throughout this video, I'm going to be asking you to take screenshots of what we're doing, so at those points please stop the video, take the requested screenshot, save it off somewhere because you will be submitting those screenshots as part of your deliverable for this assignment. Once we get the development environment set up, we will be going into Eclipse and we'll be creating a small Clojure program which you will be submitting also as part of the deliverable for this assignment. And while in Eclipse, we're going to be executing some Clojure commands too. Okay, so let's get started with the setup of the development environment for Clojure. First thing to note on this slide, we are not going to have to take the additional step of installing a Clojure binary as we did in the case of Scala and also in the case of Ruby. We won't have to for Clojure. And during class we'll talk a little bit about why that's the case. But suffice to say, as part of this assignment we're not going to have to worry about installing the binary for Clojure, but we are going to have to set up the Eclipse plugin for Clojure. Okay, so on this slide that you're looking at right now, I have the URL to the Clojure Eclipse plugin. So I'm going to copy that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up Eclipse. Okay, now what I would like to ask you to do, just as I did in the case of Scala, is I would like to ask you to create a new workspace for Clojure. So I'm going to do that by simply changing the name of my previous workspace from Workspace Kepler Scala to Workspace Kepler Clojure. So please set up a new workspace for your Clojure development. Okay, I'd like you to take a screenshot of the workspace launcher illustrating the new workspace that you've set up. Once you've done that, you can push on the OK button. Okay, so once Eclipse has launched, and if you receive this dialog, Run Scala Setup Diagnostics, you can push the Yes button to it, at which point you'll receive the Setup Diagnostics window and you can simply push OK on this window. Okay, but once Eclipse has launched, maximize it and restore the previous window configurations that we're used to working with. Okay, and you can close the startup screen. And one last thing we'll do is we will open up the console. Okay, so at the top of Eclipse, go up to Window, and then go to the selection that says Show View, and then from the next pop-up that appears, select Console. And down at the bottom you should see the console display. Okay, so now the first thing we have to do is we have to set up the Clojure Eclipse plugin. So go up to the top of Eclipse and select the Help drop down, and then go down to Install New Software and select Install New Software. Okay, and then in the Install window push the Add button, and in the Add Repository window type in Clojure for the name, and then down below in the location paste the URL from the PowerPoint presentation. And once you've done that, you can push on the OK button. Okay, then eventually in the install window you should see an entry in the center of the window for Clojure programming, and if you open that up, down below you will see something that says counterclockwise Clojure plugin for Eclipse. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to select that Clojure programming, and then we're going to push on the next button. Before you do that, I would like you to take a screenshot of this window. Then you can push on the next button. Then you can push on the next button again. Accept the license agreement, and before you push on the finish button, I'd like you to take a screenshot of this window as well. Okay, so please take a screenshot of the review licenses window, and after you've done that, you can push on the finish button. If you receive a security warning dialog like I've just received, you can push on OK. And then you will need to restart Eclipse for the changes to take effect, so push on Yes to the software updates dialog. When you receive the workspace launcher, you can simply push on OK. We've already set up a workspace for Clojure, so we don't need to make any changes here. Okay. If you receive a problem occurred marketplace DND initialization, you can push OK on that dialog. Okay, and if you receive this error message, you can push No to that. Okay, and what we want to do now again is restore the previous window configuration within Eclipse. Okay, so now the interesting thing is that for Clojure, we don't have a separate perspective that we're going to be working in, as we did in the case of Scala and also in Ruby. What we're going to actually use as our perspective for our Clojure programming is the Java perspective. Okay, so let's make sure that we're using the correct perspective. Okay, we're going to go to Window, Open Perspective, and then we're going to select Java. I'm going to actually go down to the other option to open up the Open Perspective window. Okay, and then I'm going to select Java. Okay, and I'm going to push on OK, but before I do so, I'd like to ask you to take a screenshot of this window, the Open Perspective window with the Java perspective selected. Okay, so take a screenshot of that and then push on OK. Okay, and we're going to have to open up the console window again. So I'd like to ask you to go up to the window drop-down option, okay, and go down to Show View, and then select Console. Okay. So we have Eclipse set up the way that we want it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set up a Clojure project. So go up to the File drop-down option and select New, okay, and then select at the top there's an option I can see for Clojure project. If you don't see that option, you can go down to Other. Okay, so File, New, Other. Okay, and then in the new window you should see a folder for Clojure, and you can select Clojure project, and you can click on Next. And we're going to give our project a name, and we're going to name it in all lowercase. Okay, it's going to be called My First Clojure Project. All lowercase. My First Clojure Project. And we're going to push on Finish. Okay, so underneath the Package Explorer you should see your Clojure project, okay, which you can open up, and you can see it has various folders and various files. If you go and open up the SRC folder, okay, within that folder you should see a package that's named exactly the same as your project, My First Clojure Project. If you open that up, you can see that you already have a Clojure file, or a namespace. It's referred to as a namespace included within that package. You can double click on that and it will open for you in the code editor, and there you can see some Clojure code. Okay, so you already, here's your Clojure project. It has a source folder. Within that source folder there's a package that's named exactly the same as the project, and within that package there's already a Clojure namespace. Okay, Clojure file with a little bit of code in it. But what we're going to do in the package is we're going to add a new namespace. So select the package, highlight it, do a right click, select New, and then you can select Clojure namespace from the pop-up that appears if it's there, or you can go down to the Other option, and within the new window you can select Clojure namespace. Okay, and you can push on Next, and we're going to name our namespace Program 1. Program 1. Okay, and then we're going to push on the Finish button. And you can see that a second file has been added to the package, and you can see that it's loaded in the code editor. Okay, so now we're going to include some Clojure functions actually within this file. So let's create a simple Hello World function in Clojure. Okay, and save your code. This is a simple one function, okay, named hello. It's not going to take any parameters, and when we run it, it's simply going to print out the string hello world. Okay, now the interesting thing to run a Clojure program, to run a Clojure namespace, it's a little bit different. You actually have to run it in this thing that's referred to as a read eval print loop, REPL. REPL. So we have to set that up. first of all, okay, before we can run our program. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the program 1.clj namespace, and then we're going to do a right click, and from within the pop-up that appears, we're going to go down to Run As, and then from within the next pop-up that appears, we're going to select Run Configuration. Okay, and from within the Run Configuration window, what we're going to do is we're going to select Clojure, and then up at the top there's a button that says New Launch Configuration. Push that button, and you should receive a window that looks something like this. Okay, and we're not going to make any changes in this window, but I would like you, before you do anything else, I would like you to take a screenshot of this window. Okay, so please take a screenshot of this window, and then at the bottom I would like you to push Run. Okay, and if you receive, well, first of all, on the Windows Security Alert, push Allow Access, and if you receive this problem occurred, you can push on OK on that. Okay, and then what I would like you to do is I would like you to select that program1.clj namespace again, do a right click from within the pop-up that appears, select Run As, and then select Clojure Application Preload File. Then push on Allow Access to the Windows Security Alert. And then at the bottom of Eclipse, you should see a window appear that says REPL. That is the Read Eval Print Loop. This is the window in which we execute our Clojure programs and also execute Clojure commands. First thing we're going to do is we're going to run our Hello World function. We're going to execute it. We're going to call it. Your cursor should be flashing in the bottom of the REPL. Okay, and what you want to do is you want to go to where your cursor is flashing, and you want to type in parentheses, hello. Okay, and actually when you start typing it in, you should see it appear from within a pop-up. Okay, from within a pop-up. You can double click on it, and then you have to close the parentheses. Everything in Clojure has to be enclosed in parentheses. But once you have that, you can hit enter, and then in the REPL at the top, you should see that your hello function got called, and then immediately down below that you should see the string printed out, hello world, and that's indication to you that your function was called and it was executed. Okay, so what I'd like you to do right now is take a screenshot of this. Take a screenshot of this. Okay, so we created a function in a Clojure namespace or a Clojure file, which by the way ends in a CLJ extension. Then we started up a read eval print loop, an REPL, and from within that REPL we called the function and it executed for us. Now within the REPL we can also execute Clojure commands like the addition of two numbers. Let me illustrate that. If I want to add two numbers, I can do something like that and then hit enter, and you can see Clojure told me that 1 + 1 is 2. So I'd like you to do that, and then I'd like you to take a screenshot of that. Okay. If I want to perform division, I can do that down in the REPL. I can do something like this. And that tells me that 2 divided by 4 is 0.5. Okay, so I'd like you to try that. Go down into the REPL and perform that Clojure command, 2 divided by 4. Okay, if I want to find out the class of something, I can do that. So Sue in double quotes is a string. I'd like you to try that. Okay, and I can test conditions if I want to. Is 2 less than 1? False. Okay, so I'd like you to try that. And what I'd like you to do is open up, make the REPL a little bit bigger so that you can see all of the commands that you just executed, and I'd like you to take a screenshot of that and save the screenshot off. Okay, now you have this REPL, this read eval print loop running. You don't want to just leave it running. Okay, to stop an REPL, what you have to do is you have to go over into the console, and at the top of the console there is a red button. If you place your cursor over it, it says terminate. Okay, you push that button and it will stop the read eval print loop from running. And you definitely want to do that. Okay, when you're done with your Clojure programming, which we are for this assignment, and on a moving forward basis, when you're done with your Clojure programming, you want to make sure that you stop the read eval print loop, because it's going to keep running on your laptop and you don't want that. So you want to go into the console and forcibly stop it. Okay, you want to forcibly stop it. Okay, one last thing we're going to do before we conclude this assignment. I want you to go out into your new workspace that you created. Okay, your workspace for Clojure, and you should see a folder for remote systems temp files. Okay, and as a matter of fact, I don't see the project out there. Give me just 1 second. That's interesting. Ah, there it is. I apologize for that. The projects, your Clojure projects, are going to be saved directly with, and in my case, it is C user Susie. There it is, right there. It's not actually getting saved in that workspace that we set up. I forgot about that. I apologize. But if you go up one directory from where the workspace is, you'll find the project that we just worked on. You can double click into that project, go into the source folder, go into the package, and there is the file, the namespace, program1.clj that we just created. Okay, so I'm actually glad I stumbled upon that little issue. I had completely forgotten that the projects are not going to be saved in the workspace that we created, but they're going to be saved one directory above that. Okay, and what I want you to do is I want you to send that entire folder, okay, to a zip. Okay, send it to a zip, the entire folder, the entire project, my first Clojure project, send it to a zip, and that's what you're going to be uploading as part of this assignment. Okay, so I hope everybody had good luck getting through the setup of Clojure. It's a little bit different. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thanks a lot.